Hi, this is Kelly from The Truth in Story, and I know I have a list of deck walkthroughs that I need to do, and I'm going out of order, but I intend on trimming this deck tonight. It's Christmas Eve night, and I thought this would be a lovely, I just enjoy trimming decks, kind of calm me down, and so it just kind of put me into a calm space, and so I thought this would be a lovely way now I'm just playing with the organization while I chit chat, but I thought this would be a lovely way to spend the evening and to do a little trimming, but I can't trim them until I do the walkthrough, so I wanted to go ahead and get this one out there so that I could trim it if I decided to. So this is the Dreaming Way Tarot by Romy Choi by Rome Choi. I'm just totally guessing. Romy Choi, maybe? Romechoi. I'm sure somebody will tell me how to pronounce that. The artwork is, that should be on the front, people. Illustrated by Sheena. Kwonshina. So we have a card here that, this is the backing of it, which you can see here. Again, I've seen people who love this and some other people who haven't. I quite love it, so that's good. Rome Choi has been professionally involved with tarot since 1997, both in teaching and reading for others. He studied transpersonal psychology at the He studied transpersonal psychology. His Zen practices include meditation, and they inform his tarot lectures. The characters of tarot came to Romy Choi in a dream. Thus, he named this deck the Dreaming Way Tarot. And then the artist is Kwonshina, and she began her artistic career in 1997, illustrating for different magazines, artwork for comic books, and etc. So that we have the artist and the creator of the deck. And then we have the little white book. There's an introduction to it, kind of how they go about coming up with the idea, and then it goes right into the meaning and the definitions. We do have uprights and reversed. They do make note that sometimes people think of the reverse as the opposite, but that doesn't mean the cards have opposite meanings. It's just usually weaker or stronger. So the card is stronger when it's upright and weaker when it's reversed is kind of how they're going at it. So they have that there. And so then we have about, a little paragraph about each person, or each card, sorry, and then the upright and the reversed meaning. I think it's quite interesting that on like the Magician, it talks about it referring to a person 20 to 40 years old, the High Priestess 20 to 40, young woman 20 to 40 years old. I've not really heard that about those two cards specifically. The Emperor 40 to 60 years old. It doesn't say that for the Empress. So that's just something that popped out to me that I have not particularly heard before. So basically, it goes into all of the suits. And see if there's any spreads. I've actually heard that this 5-card spread, and I love 5-card spreads, is a good one, so we'll definitely try that at the end. So there's a Dreaming Way 5-card spread at the end. So it's about 30, boy is that tiny, 39 pages. So it's a little white book, but from what I understand, this deck is quite Rider-Waite-Smith with a couple exceptions. So I don't think it's real difficult to pick this up and read if you're comfortable with the Rider-Waite-Smith meanings. It comes with a regular playing card box. I will say it was quite tight, so that when all the cards, well, especially with these two extra ones, perhaps when I take those out, it will help. But it was hard to get the cards all back in with the little white book. But these I won't be keeping, so it's quite a nice cardstock. It's thick, but not, you know, tremendously so. This is, let's try this. Oops. Oopsie, now I messed it up. Kelly, why'd you do that? I was just checking to see, and then I messed things up. This is what happens. Oh well, now we're all whopper-jawed. But it's a nice, I actually quite like the stock. Oh, where am I at? It's thick, but it's flexible, and it's shuffle. I have shuffled these when they were out of order because they kind of fell out of the box. So I have shuffled them, and they have a real nice shuffle to them. They have a little bit of a sheen, but not much at all. So I quite like the cardstock, to be honest. So yeah, so then again, I talked about the box. Let's see what it says. Dreaming Way Tarot dresses up traditional tarot with contemporary artistic flair. In its exquisite deck, stylish characters breathe new life into the scenes and symbols of the major minor arcana. The Dreaming Way Tarot offers a fresh interpretations of tarot and explores numerological as well as elemental influences. So we shall take a look. It's by U.S. Game Systems, 2012. So I'm going to set that aside. I have the, put these up here. You can see from the, I love to be able to see the aces. I quite love the aces, especially the Ace of Swords, because it's so detailed but simple at the same time. The cups are all these kind of spotted cups. It is definitely a whimsical styled deck. Almost a soft steampunk whimsical deck. I don't know really how. If somebody knows how you would best describe this deck, I would love to hear it, because I'm not entirely sure how you would describe it. But I do really love the aces. There is a simplicity, kind of sketching with watercolor energy to the artwork that I think is quite beautiful. I have heard people review this deck and call it, you know, soft, and it's only good for children, which I know of people who use this as a primary deck, and I think we have to be very careful when we say that, you know, this should just be used for young people. Now, it might be a good deck to read with young people, because I don't believe there's any kind of nudity or anything of that sort, but you know, I don't really think it's softened that much, but we shall take a look at the cards and see. So here we have the Fool. Often we see these funky hats on them, kind of pointy shoes. So there's definitely a sense of whimsy to the cards. But they're also very, poignant is a word that comes up for me for this deck. There is a poignancy to this deck that I think is quite lovely. We can see it quite traditional. He's up on a cliff, or she. They're also sometimes gender neutral, which I think is also lovely. So this could, I think you could read either way, although I tend to see her as a female. But we have, you know, she's got everything. She's got her pack on her back. She's got the white dog. She's up on a cliff. So it's very, I think, traditional Fool imagery there. The Magician is quite steampunky, I think, with the round glasses and just the outfit. Very often they have their hands in their pockets, but we do have the elements of his craft all lined out. You know, I would prefer his hands to be out of his pocket and look as if he's actually manifesting. But other than that, and truth, this is also quite gender neutral. I think you could read this either way as well. They all tend to have very rosy cheeks. Some of them have blue rosy cheeks, and I think you need to pay attention when that comes up. But you know, I can read with this. I like the background on it. I like the coloration. You know, I think it would be great if he was actually like manifesting in his hands. But you do have that sense that he's very self-contained. He has everything he needs. Here is the beautiful High Priestess, which is on the top of the box. I have read complaints that, you know, this is a very childish Empress, that she doesn't have that sensuality that you associate with the High Priestess, and I can understand that. But we do have the moon, the crescent moon here. We have the Torah in her hands. We have a comfortability in herself that I think comes across in this. We even have some bubbles on here that makes me think of water, even though this is quite a green card. So I don't think it's my perfect idea of a High Priestess, just in terms I would like it to be more blues and watery tones. But this is kind of the tone of the deck in general. So I think it's very readable, if different version. I love this Empress. There is a beautiful simplicity here. The pregnancy and the wheat grains, and even the way her eyes are closed. There are many cards with the eyes closed. It brings about a very internal feel for some of the images here, and I quite love this card, even though it's very simple. I get the sense of the Empress with this card. Here we have the Emperor with all of his trappings of royalty, but he's sitting out in a field. So I love that, because and he's even got like armor on, like we traditionally see. So we have that, both that sense of being a ruler in the traditional world, almost looks like he's Scottish with a kilt on over his armor. But he's out in the natural world as well, so we get both aspects of his rulership. So I do like that. He's looking quite pensive. Here we have the Hierophant, which is a very traditional. We have the keys up here. We have sort of a bishopy kind of looking man, but again, his eyes are closed, and I quite like this about this card. It does give it an inner sense of going within that you don't often see with the Hierophant. You know, like he's kind of waiting, he's going to be teaching shortly, but he's kind of going within and centering himself before he gives out his knowledge. I quite like this card. This is the Lover's card, and we have our angel and our girl and our boy, but they're all three joining hands. And I love this because I see this a card about choice. I also see this a card about the higher self, the conscious and the subconscious, all being brought together and balance. And with them all three here and holding hands, there's a very strong sense of that in this card for me. So I think it's quite lovely and very different. Here we have the Chariot, and I love this because there is such a sense of motion here. We often, times in Rider-Waite-Smith kind of knockoffs, and especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith itself, we have a chariot that's just plunked down and sitting there. I want to see movement. We have the black and white horse. We have a person on the back being very confident, and you know, I think more riding on the backs of the horses so much than an actual chariot. But I do love this card because of the sense of movement and the sense of confidence that he's portraying. So I think that's beautiful. I love the Strength card. Again, we have a lot of eyes closed. It just makes it, for me, even though it's a whimsical in design, it makes it very pensive and very, again, poignant. That's the word that sticks out to me for this particular deck right now. She does have the infinity sign over her head, and there is a sense of them communing together. There is no prying open of the mouth. There is no struggle here. They are in unity. She's drawing her strength from being connected with her both sides of herself, and for working on healing her inner self, that I think is quite beautiful. I love the Hermit. He is going off into the forest, but again, his eyes are closed, so he's going outward, but he's away, but he's also going inward, and I just love that. And we have the traditional star, six-pointed star that is inside the lantern. I think it's beautiful. I love that we have a spinning wheel. There's another deck I just looked at that has a spinning wheel. Oh, the Fairy Tarot by Doreen Virtue has a spinning wheel that I love the idea of it. I didn't like the angel or fairy that was sitting next to the spinning wheel. This, however, is a perfect union of this fairy, of the spinning wheel and a angel and or fairy here that I think is quite lovely. I kind of even like we have sort of a tangle going on, and sometimes life is a tangle and we need to untangle it. Sometimes the spin of the wheel causes some problems, but she's working on untangling it. I think this is a beautiful Justice card. I love the sword. It's very much it is the sword from the Ace of Swords. And we have the balance here. We have her blindfolded, seeing through, doesn't need to use her eyes to see through to the truth. I think it's beautiful. Here we have the Hanged Man, although this appears, in my opinion, to be a woman, which I quite like. You don't get that very often. And I love that she's hanging from this very abundant tree branch. She is tied to it, and she is getting her new perspective. I just think it's adorable. I think her outfit's adorable, and I think it works wonderfully. Now, I love this card because I am a huge fan of Penny Dreadful television series, and this card reminds me of Vanessa Ives. So I think some people think this isn't a very good death card. I've read, it just doesn't really show anything. But for me, connecting it to Vanessa Ives, I think it works beautifully because she is in a continual process of transformation that I think works. And again, if you understand the meaning of the death card, I think it's pretty easy to go there. This might take a little bit more explaining of than with working with a client, but for me, just in terms of imagery, I think it works. It works for me very well because of the Vanessa Ives. Here we have the Temperance card, which I think is so lovely. We have the water, and she's in her like Wellington boots, which I love. I love the green tones of this deck. Obviously we have the green backing. The tone of the deck is very greeny based, which I personally love because it's my favorite color. But we do have kind of the greens and the blues. We don't have like the mixing of the red and the water and the fire energy, but I still think this is quite readable, and I think it's lovely. I love this Devil's card. I think it's great because this is why I love this card. It's cool. The Devil is a female, which I like. We don't see that very often. I do like the kind of devil horns and wings kind of nodding to the traditional devil imagery. But she is also very beautiful. Most people aren't succumbing to temptations by, really horrible looking things. So I love that. We again have people that are chained, but they could untangle themselves. She could easily untwist herself from there and walk away from her chains, which is important to me. And I love that the devil herself is in a straitjacket. So there is that even idea of the devil, the energy behind what the devil card represents being restricting and disempowering. So I quite actually really like this devil card. Here we have the Tower card, and this is why, from what I understand, like people have some things I have read have said, that the harder cards of the tarot deck has been softened down too much. But I personally think that this is quite readable as it's a very almost traditional devil card. Yes, it's a woman again and things like that, but it's quite traditional. The Tower card, there is a lot of destruction going on here. We don't have people falling from it, but we definitely have destruction going on, and we have the lightning strike. We have that understanding of this, kind of unexpected and uncontrollable event that has happened that is quite devastating, but our foundation is still strong to rebuild. So for me, that's quite powerful. Here we have the Star card, which I love. It is I have read people have said that it's quite similar to the Temperance card, but it's not like you're going to mix them up. The Temperance card is an angel. I love the star on her apron here. I love the two different jugs that are going on with the water. She's standing, I know we don't have the 1 foot in the water and 1 foot on land, but I think that, again, if you have a traditional understanding of the meanings of the tarot, that to me is quite easy to read, and I think it's beautiful. Look at the moon. This is lovely because a lot of times the moon's about shadow work, like it's digging into your shadow side. And here she is kind of wrestling with this lobster, or kind of keeping it from pinching her. So I think it's great. We have the big moon behind her. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely work with this moon card. It's like the High Priestess in the sense that, people say we're not seeing that deep, dark depth, so to speak. But I think that the imagery is there. It resonates with the cards, and I think it's very readable, and it's adorable because look at her black glasses. What's not to love about that? Here we have the sun. You all know that I don't prefer children or babies in my sun cards, but at least this isn't a gross looking cherub. It's a quite sweet little baby, kind of reminiscent to me more of the energy of the Tarot of the Hidden Realms sun card with the sweet little boy. So this works for me. I like Judgment. We have the angels, the traditional angels calling up things. So we have that imagery that reminds us, it taps into that energy, but we don't, we don't have the whole picture here, but it still works as that sort of calling up, accounting time to kind of look back and kind of review our decisions and things like that, and deciding how we want to move forward with our life into this kind of new life. So it works for me, and I love the World card here because how often do you have an old man at the end of the World card? But what better sense of completion? He's at the end of his days. It's almost like Bilbo Baggins is kind of sitting here at the end of his journey after he's had the journey there and back again, and now he's kind of his sense of completion. He's reached the end, and he's enjoying the fruits of his life, and kind of, I just think it works wonderfully. I like it. So that is the major arcana. But let's start with my favorite suit. As always, here we have the Ace of Swords. Now in this deck we have Ace through 10, obviously, and then we have the pages, knights, and queens and kings, but the pages are all girls. So I like that because we have the two females and the two male energies there. I like it when decks do that. This is a beautiful Ace of Swords. I love the detail work on the hilt of the sword. It's so simple. And I love this. This is what I love, this Two of Swords. She's got her two swords. It's very wintry, or she's blindfolded. She's got a decision to make. Beautiful swords in hand. I love this card. Here we have the Three of Swords, very pointed. We've got three swords going into her heart. We have a, kind of pained look on her face. We don't have blood going everywhere. We don't have a heart impaled, but we get the energy of this card, and there is a starkness. There was so much green in the rest of the deck. The swords have a very wintered field energy to them that I think is very beautiful and fitting for the suit. Here we have the Four of Swords. I love this. She's sort of lounged back. She is taking a break and resting, but there is a little bit of that sense of possibility of stagnation and needing to be careful not to stagnate. There's a little bit of that going on there that I think works very beautifully. Here we have the Five of Swords. This is interesting because the Five of Swords generally is about discord, and I'm going to take this opportunity to look at the little white book. Usually it is about discord and fighting and that kind of thing. Strong contender, lost in competition, passed over, sacrifice, taking advantage of others' selfish motives. So we have somebody who is kind of winning at the expense of another person. There's another deck that goes with the Five of Swords along that idea as well. So we don't get the chaos so more. We get the competition aspect. This person is kind of, you know, taking the competition a little too seriously and running at the expense of the others. So we get that sense more so than the strife aspect. So this is why I do think it's important with this deck to look through the book, although again, you can get that very clearly with the imagery. Here is the Six of Swords, which I think is beautiful because we have sort of the retreat with the help. We have the 6 swords in the boat. We have the waters. So I think this works beautifully as a 6 of Swords. Again, I just love the starkness of the sword suit in this deck, and I love this beautiful knitted kind of accents to all their clothing. So here we have the 7 of Swords, normal idea of the taking away the 5 swords, but there's a risk being taken. Why is the risk being taken? Is it for the betterment of something? Is it for the, you know, stealing of something? There are lots of ways to read the 7 of Swords, and I think this taps into that lovely. I also love the 8 of Swords. Yes, you know, I've seen people say, well, she's not bound, which is true. But I still think that this is very readable. I love, again, the knit and the boots. And I think it's a beautifully done, quiet deck, but I still think it's quite readable, despite, you know, would I've liked her hands to be bound? Sure, but I can certainly read with that. I think this is beautiful. Instead of the rosy cheeks, we have her kind of blue color bleeding on her face, and we have her kind of holding her head like just got to stop her brain, and all these beautifully intricate swords. So I love that. Here we have the 10 of Swords. Again, I've read more than one review saying that it really pulls back from the difficult cards, but you know, yes, we don't have red blood everywhere, but this is quite a graphic 10 of Swords that gets its point across 10 times. I love this Page of Swords. Look at her. She's just gorgeous. The scenery is stark, but she's got her good, strong hold on this gorgeous, like, knife curved blade here. I think it's beautiful, and I love it. And I love the Knight of Swords. Again, he's on a horse, which I like. There's movement, which I like. There's the starkness. It's perfect. The kings and the queens are very traditional, very kind of seated. We don't have a lot of happy faces, which I've also seen mentioned, but it lends, I think, to the poignancy of this particular deck. But I love the black and white feel with the very subtle use of color in the sword suit that I think is beautiful. So very happy with the sword suit, and that's, of course, my most important suit. Let's take a look at the cups. The cups are one of the suits that kept this on my list versus in my possession. The polka dotted, but it fits with, again, with the whimsicalness of this deck. But I do love the Ace of Cups with the water movement and splashing around, and then the cup. I think it's beautiful. Two of Cups. I mean, that's wonderful. Very androgynous. She looks very obvious. This is likely supposed to be a male and female, but you do have very much a little bit of androgyny there that you can pull from that I think works lovely. Here we have the Three of Cups all together. They do have very strange hats in this deck, but it works. The Four of Cups, again, I think she looks quite dissatisfied. So it's very strange that we have sort of these random flowers stuck here. But other than that, I mean, it works quite beautifully. Again, the coloration for this versus the sword suit, you can definitely see the seasonal elements. I definitely am feeling like there's some seasons built in here, which would be lovely. So here we have, okay, I already talked about that. I think this is beautiful because we have the Three Cups. We have the person who is facing the spilled cups and the person who is holding on to the cups that are still there, that are still full. And she's kind of, again, that inward look of, okay, yes, I have this going on behind me, but I'm choosing to move forward this way, where this person is choosing to look back towards the things that are lost. So there's a lot that can come up with this particular card, so many different ways. And traditionally you do not see two people, but I think it is very beautiful and very powerful in this card. Here we have the Six of Cups, which we have the sweet young girl here, and boy, he's kind of got a bouquet in one. We have him balancing. There's a playfulness that's going on here, even while still holding on to that poignancy. The Seven of Cups, we have all the choices that we will see traditionally in the Seven of Cups. The Eight of Cups, going away. We have the water there. We have the cups leaving behind, and it's time to move off in a new direction. We have the Nine of Cups, which is, you know, generally about kind of achievement, right? She doesn't look like we're not having this huge sense of achievement going on here, but she's savoring her accomplishments. She's sitting here. I love her outfit, and she's sitting here with all the things that she's accomplished surrounding her, and she's just kind of taking a moment and sitting with them. So I know people have said, you know, she doesn't look very happy. I've read that, but I do like this card. I think that she's just taking a moment to rest with what she's already achieved. And then here we have the Ten of Cups, that sense of family that I think is, you know, it makes the point. This is a family who looks like they're well connected. The mother is nurturing the child here. The father's playing with the child. You know, we definitely have the Ten of Cups sense here. We have the Page of Cups, which I quite love. I mean, it's again quite whimsical. She's got the teapot on her head. We have the droplet of water coming out. We have the fish kind of outside of their element, showing, you know, kind of her working within the energy of her suit. So I do love this just for the whimsy and the sweetness. It's a page. We have the Knight of Cups, again on the horse movement. That's what all I really need to see with the Knight card. Look at the Queen of Cups. I love her with her little girl seated next to her. I think that is just a beautiful card. You can see in a lot of cards there is sort of like design that's kind of stamped in as well, like on the clothing in the background, that's beautifully shown here. And then we have the King of Cups. I love how he's sitting in his... We don't really see a lot of water, I will say that here, although it's kind of inferred back here. But she does have the cup in her hand. I love that he's got a cup with a ship in it, and he's actually on. He's like fully realizing and comfortable in his element. So I'm really sold on these cards. Here we have the Ace of Wands. Here's the Two of Wands. Kind of, I love that whole kind of holding the future in his hand. It's going to go through the two wands and start to move forward. We have the Three of Wands with the rainbow in the background. I love the little jumper play suit. Again, it is definitely whimsical, but it's not to the sense of a fun whimsy. It really is a poignant, I think, very inner child, but in a deep way. It's hard to explain the energy of this deck. We have the Four of Wands, the celebration that's going on. Now, the Five of Wands, we definitely see that strife that's going on in this particular card. The Six of Wands, very traditional, celebratory, you know, people recognizing his achievements or her achievements. It could be either way. The Seven of Wands, I love this. She's taking each thing as she can, and she's sort of in the air. This reminds me of the Shadowscape Seven of Wands, except for there's a fox, but it just has that energy of kind of taking on each thing as it comes. The Eight of Wands, very traditional, 8 movements. I love this. Grab onto one as it's coming. Time is short. Grab it. Here we have the Nine of Wands. Everything's kind of done, and now there is just that little bit of a weight. There's a little bit, she's tired, but we're almost there. It's that final push kind of sense. I think this is beautifully done. Same thing with this. He's trying to hold on to everything. He's bent over but not broken. He's going to get it. It's difficult. I would like a little bit of a sense of movement. I like the kind of one foot in front of the other feel, but I do have the sense that he's dropped it, and that's okay. He's picking it up and he's going to move forward despite the adversity, despite how difficult it is. This is probably my favorite Page of Wands ever. That is an absolutely gorgeous picture, and I love it. The Knight of Wands, we have the horse. We don't see the whole horse, but we certainly get the sense he's on the horse. And I think it's interesting that he's looking backwards. I don't know that I particularly like that, but he might be seeing that there's a new way to take his creative energy, and so he's going to kind of move with it. So we have that. We have the Queen of Wands looking very pensive, maybe a little too pensive. And I definitely can see that people say that many of the faces are quite pensive here. But so this isn't perhaps my favorite Queen of Wands, but I still love it. They're very regal looking. They're not, and look at this, almost like there's a lizard on his shirt. So the King and Queen aren't my favorite there, maybe even the Knight, but she's my absolute favorite, I think, ever Page of Wands. And then we have the Pentacles, and here we have the Ace of Pentacles, very traditional. The Two of Pentacles, again, very traditional. We have that going around the Two Pentacles, juggling things. This is an interesting Three of Pentacles. I have seen one of the reviews that I read talks about this. This definitely strays from the Rider-Waite idea of the Three of Pentacles, which is generally about getting help from others. But you could read this way, because I'm trying to pull it up so I can see how they word it. I still think that you could read this way, because this is a person who, things are falling off their head. They're trying to balance it on their head. They're trying to do it on their own, and it's not working. So you need to reach out and ask for help from others. So I think this is still very readable that way. They're reading this. The guidebook says there are benefits now, but they are insubstantial and temporary. That this person is competent but not an expert. I personally wouldn't really probably read this way. To me, it works with that sense of she can't do it on her own. She needs to ask for help. The Four of Pentacles, we have very traditional, kind of sitting on it, holding on to it. A very traditional looking Four of Pentacles. I think this is a beautiful and poignant Five of Pentacles. My only, negative, I would say, is I just really love there to be two figures in the Five of Pentacles. It's one of my favorite cards, and I really do prefer there to be a person, another person. I have a number of decks that do not have two people in it, so I can read with it, but otherwise I think this is very beautiful and gets the energy of the card across beautifully. Here we have the Six of Pentacles. I love this because I like them when they have the scale in hand, because there's that sense of needing to weigh who do you need to help, who needs the help, who doesn't need it, how are you going to use your resources. Here we have the Seven of Pentacles with all of her shopping bags. So I quite like that. We have reflecting on what you have versus what you need, kind of questioning your choices. That's what the guidebook is saying, and I think that this gets that across beautifully. The Eight of Pentacles, look how diligent and hardworking. And then we have the Nine of Pentacles, somebody who is accomplished in what they're doing and is very confident. Now the Ten of Pentacles is quite different. Usually you'll see like a family scene. This is, as somebody that I read wrote, I think it's maybe the Little Red Tarot, this is more in a business-like sense. We have that sense of success more in terms of business here. But I still think that you can read this as a traditional Ten of Pentacles. Then we have the lovely Page of Pentacles. I love that she's reading a book. The Knight of Pentacles on his horse. The beautiful Queen of Pentacles with, this is a very Empressy feel too, with the red and the waters and the abundance. So I do quite like that, but I love the baby there. And then the King of Pentacles, his vineyard is overflowing onto his robe. But yeah, I'm really pleased with these cards. I am so glad that these were gifted to me after someone did me a reading with these cards that was beautiful and poignant. Maybe that's why that word is just so stuck in my head. Because of that, that's kind of how I see these cards. But I am really pleased with these cards. I'm really, there are a few differences from the Rider-Waite-Smith, but I don't think that as long as you have a good base knowledge, I don't think you have any problem reading these just off of the traditional meanings of the tarot cards. They shuffle beautifully. I'm kind of torn. You know, my intention was to trim these, but I'm kind of torn. You know, it's just a very unobtrusive white border. So I was going to do that tonight. That's why I was doing this walkthrough. But I may have to sit and think about it a little bit and look at some more images of them trimmed, because there is something also that I do like about the simple white border around them. So, and I also love the way they shuffle, which sometimes when you trim decks, you lose a little bit of that shuffle. Not always, but some cardstock. Very much so with the Druid Craft, I don't like how that shuffle's trimmed. But then I have other decks that do shuffle lovely trim, so I'm not sure. Today is Christmas Eve. So a lovely time to be doing a reading. Let's get that, let me get the positions out here. Actually, I think this is a beautiful one for me to do. I'm going to do this for myself. So this is the Dreaming Way 5-card spread. More good shuffle. The first card is my present gifts. And there we have, you know, we're probably going to have to move this out of the way. I have a lot of gifts. I have so much gifts that I can't hold them all. And that is certainly true. I have had an abundant season of joy with so many of you sharing decks. This deck itself was gifted to me, and I have so much that I can hardly hold on to all the wonderful things that I have. So I think that I also, you know, reading this more traditionally, I also have that sense that, you know, I have the gift of being able to persevere. Things have been difficult. It's been a difficult holiday season for, you know, reasons which you all, I know, are aware of, but I have been able to put one foot in the front of the other and been able to persevere through it, and that is a gift. So both ways I think it works beautifully. Now they have the past here and change here. I'm going to reverse that. I simply can't really see the past here. So for me, I'm going to do the past here, and I'm going to do change. This is things that are changing here. And then we have the dreams overhead, which I think is beautiful, a position. And then underneath we have delusion. So that is quite interesting. What do they say about delusion? What message have you been telling yourself that you no longer believe? So that's interesting. I don't know if you can see. Let's move him up a little bit so maybe we can get justice is here though. So that's quite interesting. So we have in the past the King of Swords, and this is what's something that we need to, now this is kind of in the sense that I'm reading the past description. What past pain is keeping you stuck in a victim mentality? I don't believe I have a victim mentality, so that's a good thing. But I can read this in terms of something that may be weighing me down, and that is definitely the King of Swords in terms of overthinking. So if it's something that's weighing me down, then I'm looking at this card in shadow. And so the King of Swords in shadow is that sense of just having the mind be too much in control, control. There's too much going on in the mind. That is my eternal problem. And so that certainly makes sense. But in the change is like, what do I need to change in my life to fully realize happiness? And so we have the Fool here. And so if I am so much analytical and so much in my mind, what I need to bring into the energy I need to bring in would be the energy of just kind of being open to the new experiences. And it's difficult for me to be open. I am 10 to 1 that kind of closes in, and that's why I get trapped in my brain. And so I need to kind of face life a little bit more open, a little bit, again, not with a target on my forehead, but open wide to new experiences and kind of moving into 2016 with that sense of, let's see what the new year has to bring, because actually the last year has brought me wonderful things, and I do kind of feel that sense of being open to new possibilities for 2016. I just have to make sure I keep myself out of my head too much. Dreams, we have the King of Wands, and that is certainly appropriate. What do I aspire to? The King of Wands, I do aspire to that sort of transformative manifesting energy of the wands, of kind of really putting things out there and what are important to me and what mean a lot to me as I'm building my business, which is my passion. So I think that is really fantastic card to have come in as my dreams. And then in the bottom, we have for this one, which is delusion, message that I've been telling myself that I no longer believe in. So that's quite interesting, because justice is about, I always told myself that everything is about balance. And I do believe that. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I no longer believe that. But I do see this also, that idea of blind truth. Because again, because this is a delusion, I'm going to see the Justice card in shadow. It's on my list to do a video on how I view reversals, so to speak. And for me, it's the card in shadow. And so this position puts justice in shadow. And so I think that in shadow, there is that idea of that there is always a set truth, because there isn't always. That's a black and white thinking mentality of my past that I like to believe that I have left behind, that can sometimes crop in that black and white thinking, because there isn't really a sense of black and white, and there isn't necessarily even single truths, which I think people have a hard time with. Yes, we can see through to the truth, but truth is subjective. And so we have to be open to understanding a truth from many different aspects. So that's kind of a little way that I would see that, just in obviously trying to do a quick reading so you can see this particular spread that came in the booklet for this deck. But I think it's beautiful laid out. I do think I'm probably going to trim it. I think these colors are so rich that it needs to be freed. So there we have it. It's going to make it a longer and skinnier deck, but I think it's going to be beautiful. So, okay, I'm getting ready to trim these, and I just wanted to make a quick little tip. You know, a lot of times the decks come with these artist cards, and these are a really good way to kind of practice on what, I can't remember which one of these scissors I like better. So I'm just kind of practicing. What I'm doing is I'm cutting this like that, and then I'm going to use, oops, that's my hole puncher. I have 2 hole punchers. This makes a smaller corner, but which I kind of would like for this because it's so skinny, but I don't always like the way this cuts. So I'm going to start it. You have to be much more careful with this trimming, or else you don't get great corners. But see, I do like the look of that. So you can see how much, like, it doesn't seem like you'd lose very much of the card, but you actually, you know, the borders, even when they're small like this, do add quite a bit to the actual card. Now, so it's going to make quite a skinny, long, kind of skinny card is what's going to do. So then what I might do is then take this one and say, okay, I'm going to do the same thing here. Now, the thing to know, if you have the two different size card or corner rounders, is that obviously if you do you always want to do the little one first if you're in doubt, because you can always go back over and do the big one on top of it. Okay, I just wanted to show you real quick. Here is the deck untrimmed, and then here is, oh, you can't see that. And then here are some of, look at that. You can just see how the colors just pop, where they're kind of separated out here. So when you look at them, like, here's 3 card. Now sometimes that separation is good. I'll say even with, say, the Paulina Tarot, I think it almost needs the separation for me, or else it gets a little hectic. But you can just kind of see the difference. And look at that. That's so gorgeous. I mean, it's gorgeous either way, let's be honest, but there's definitely something very connective for me when you take the borders off. Not all the times, but there are times in which you can see overflow into different cards, and it just kind of ties them together when you have them kind of lined up. So I think these are beautiful. I'm really glad that I went ahead and trimmed them. Well, I'm not done with them, but I wanted you to be able to see what they looked like. Look at those two. Those are going to be gorgeous. Here, let's just do this one. Now, I could actually go and make the under the words shorter. I have considered that, which would shorten the length, so it's because they are now quite tall and skinny. But you know, if you don't get them exact, because see how they're kind of, oops, I keep forgetting which way I have to do things, but see how they're closer to that line than they are to the bottom of the card? So I could actually cut some of that off. I'm quite tempted to do that, but I can go back in and do that and then re-corner the bottoms, but I decided to start out not. And you'll see, you know, they're not exactly smooth, like compared to, say, you know, machine cut, you know, where it's so exactly smooth there. You don't get that with the scissors. Maybe perhaps with a paper cutter, but I don't really worry about it. Okay, I am back and the deck is now fully trimmed, and you can see how gorgeous it is. It's got very green color tones, overtone to the whole deck, which I of course love, because, which is, you know, it's a very green backing too. So I love these trimmed. I kind of went back and forth about whether I had wanted to trim these, mostly because I wasn't so sure about how long and skinny that it made them. But they're so beautiful trimmed, but you can see, I mean, they just really are beautiful cards. So I'm really happy with these. Like I said, I've already done, I did a little reading tonight where I used these, and I can certainly see myself pulling these out. They're very poignant. I think they're very internal. Yes, they're whimsical, but it's a sit with the inner child in a more somber-ish kind of way, which is interesting because of the whimsical nature of it. But I don't really see this as a fun deck. At least for me, it doesn't read fun. It just reads whimsical, but with a very interior feel to it. I'm not quite sure how to describe it, but that's probably one of my favorite cards. Look how beautiful that is. So there we have it. This has been a rambling look at the Dreaming Way Tarot by Rome Chow, or Rome Chow, something like that, with the artwork by, and I don't have it with me, but I've said it a couple times. Here we go, Quan Shina, or Shina. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. I am so excited to have this deck, and I will certainly be one that I will be using. So